This is the Seven Figure Standard Podcast, hosted by Arash and Mykie Stiller, with mindset and strategies to help you break through and create personal freedom.
Hello, and welcome back to the Seven Figure Standard Podcast. I'm Mykie Stiller, joined by my co-host, Arash Vasugi, and we are so thrilled to be back with you for another episode. Today's episode is going to be so good. We are calling it Your Standards Are Showing, Why Average Habits Create Broke Results. And Arash, before we get started, I just want to bring you on. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
I am doing great as well. You know why I love this topic so much? That second part, why average habits create broke results. And then couple that with the first part, your standards are showing. I think so often we lie to ourselves. We think, oh, I'm holding a new standard. But if the results aren't changing, are you really holding a new standard? So let's have you really dig in and dissect this for us.
Well, I'm going to go off of what you started with. Most entrepreneurs and most people, even if you're not entrepreneurs, what is the habit they have? They're not honest with themselves. Over 20 years, that has become so clear to me. Mm-hmm. And so the first standard that we have to have is honesty. We've got to be brutally honest, but we don't shame ourselves. That's what people don't understand. That's why they suppress it. They don't want to look at it. But until we're honest, how can we create the results? So I want to activate everyone first. I want you to ask yourself, what are the results that I want to get? What is the results? Why do you listen to our podcast? There's a result you're wanting to get from it. It could motivate you. You've really implemented it. It's giving you bigger ideas than what you're currently working on, whatever it is. Okay. My result for doing these podcasts is to create breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough for people and get you to leverage my experience, the millions that I've spent on my own personal development, so you can wipe out your ignorance. And all ignorance is, that could sound harsh, but I don't mean it harsh. Ignorance means not knowing. So it's always leveling up the ideas. So I want you to put in your mind the absolute results you want to have. And now we've got to build the habits. Our habits equal our identity. But we don't have habits. There's no reason to build habits if we don't have strong standards. Now, a lot of people right now, and I'm talking to all of you, and you could ask yourself, God, that's me, Arash. You're working really hard. You're trying really hard. You're putting a lot of effort in. You're grinding your way. And that's not the deal. That's not standards. You've got to understand those are from fears that are under the hood. I've got to work harder to get the results. I'm not going to trust my team. I'm just going to do it myself. If that's you, I promise you it's going to lead to burnout. I promise you this. But when you operate with standards, now you don't tolerate anything less than your goal. That's the key.
Arash, whenever we talk about average habits keeping someone broke, what would you consider some of the widest accepted average habits people have?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I think that's the biggest one.
So complacency?
Yeah, complacency, and really lying to ourselves is a habit, right? Yeah. Or another one, the market is telling me this, so I'm doing better than most. So they're letting the market or what other people are doing dictate what they're doing, yet they're not understanding, I've got a big idea. I'm running my race. I don't give a shit what's going on the outside. I'm going to keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it until the way shows itself.
Mm-hmm. I think also sometimes we convince ourselves that we're doing everything we can to make ourselves feel good, but there's always more you can do.
I always leverage my mentor. I always pass forward stories because I always say they're only stories because I implemented his ideas. And he used to tell me all the time, we can get so much better. He said, Arash, better is a great word. He used to always tell me that. And I remember in the beginning, I thought it sounded cute, but I didn't really understand it, because I had ignorance. But boy, was he right. Better is such a great habit to create. It's not just a word, it's a habit. When you are really locked in on getting better, the game changes. But what I've discovered, when I got better is because I stopped caring what other people thought. And I was running my own race. a lot of people are running somebody else's race. And a lot of people are not upgrading their skill set, which is a standard. Understand this, of what their goal demands. They say, I'm pretty good. I'm good at what I do. Like, I'm sure everyone listening to this is very good at what they do, but where can they get better?
Mhm.
That's the new level. That's going to open the floodgates to their next level of growth and freedom.
When we talk about standard, I think the hardest part that a lot of people have is they'll come up with a standard that they want to hold, but they have trouble holding it. So what advice can you give someone to hold a new standard?
You have to commit. The treasure is always in our commitment. So another way to look at standard are your rules. Like, these are my rules. I do my morning routine every day. I am obsessed about upgrading my skill set. I'm always thinking about what is the next offer I can give that's going to create bigger, faster results. The whole purpose that I put out all these different offers is to change people's life. That's the whole purpose of an offer, is to change somebody's life. There is no wealth without adding significant value to the other person. So when we do that, everything changes. Everything changes. So what we have to do is stop making standard so difficult. It's simple. You choose the standard, and these are my rules. These are my code of ethics that I operate from.
Mhm.
And then you hold it by operating from that one day at a time. And then it's going to be turned into your story. And then the story creates the identity creates the results. Most people are making a mistake. I was at dinner the other night, and I was getting questions on my social media. How can I change my identity? And I responded, I said, you can't change your identity until you change your standard. It's always standard first. Standard, then we got to upgrade the story. So you got to look at what are the standards that are essential for the next 6+ months for me to create 2025 as the best year of my life. Now, understand, when I just said that, a lot of you got uncomfortable. And what happens is our subconscious mind speaks in stories. So it's going to relate to an old story that says you've tried to do this before. If that's you, don't look at it like that. Tell yourself, if that came up for you, and I promise you it came up for a lot of people, Mike, when it comes up, what we have to do is create a bigger story that overcomes our limiting beliefs.
So good. Okay, let's talk about personal responsibility when it comes to both standard and habit, because I've heard people say, well, this is the standard that I want to hold, but my spouse's standard is different, but my team's standard is different. How do I hold this standard when the people around me are not? So I want you to talk about personal responsibility when it comes to standards specifically.
Standard has nothing to do with anybody else but you. And you lead by example. I'm aware that I have a high standard. I'm aware of that. And I'm aware it makes a lot of people uncomfortable too in my environment. But I don't worry about that. I just keep leading by example. I don't say, okay, I got to lower my standard because they don't have a high standard. No. If they're going to come with me, they're going to have to raise their standard, or else you're going to outgrow it. So the standard is the standard is the standard. It just is. And standard always wins. Now, nothing will catapult your results more than standard. I remember, I used to have such an unconscious standard. I didn't even know what standard was. Well, as I started getting to know myself better and deconstructing what I was doing that was creating wins, I was talking about standards all the time. I was constantly talking about standards. And then I became intentional about building my standard. And that's where everything changed. Like, everyone listening to this has a strong standard in a certain area. Is that certain area you? I said honesty is one of the most important standards, but your relationship with you and understanding you and growing you is so important to build that standard if you want to achieve something greater than you've ever achieved.
Okay, I just thought of a question related to standard, and we've done several episodes on standard on the podcast now, but I don't think I've ever asked this question. I think it's a good one. So when you want to set a new standard, do you look at the results you're currently creating that you no longer want to tolerate to set a new standard, or do you look at the goal to set a new standard?
It's always the goal. And beyond the goal, it's how do you want to live? Like, for me, it's always about experiences. Like, what type of experience you want and the frequency of your experiences. I remember early on, I set this goal I want to travel 4 times a year to exotic destinations. That was like, I'm taking you back 20 years. Now I travel 12 times a year. And it's so funny because you start letting an idea work with you, the idea just makes you grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember at that time, I remember thinking, God, 4 times, that would be amazing. Are people really doing that? And it's just so important to be around people who are further than you. I had another situation. I'm kind of laughing. I'm looking back now. Um, I went with my cousin. I really admired my cousin, and growing up. Anyway, he's a top surgeon in San Diego, and we went to Starbucks, and he's like, "Put $100 on my card." I thought, "Oh my God!" I told my wife, "Can you believe they put $100 on a Starbucks card?" And I started doing it. Even though I didn't have hardly any money at the time, I started doing it because I watched somebody that I admired who I see living a much better way than I was living at the time. And that's how standard happens. That's why you get in a room. It's like people come to our World Class Wealth event. They go, I'm never the same. Well, if they do the work, they're never going to be the same, but they get impacted just walking in that room because the standard of the room.
Yeah.
So standard is so important. And when you really understand the importance of it, you will build it. But why are so many people broke right now when it's the easiest time in the history of our world to earn money? Because their habits suck. They don't do it now. They don't behave their way out of a new identity. They're constantly letting the outside results control them. And they fluff their ego because I'm doing better than most.
Yeah.
But when you get humble and hungry, everything's going to change. Like, I have such a strong stance on this. I have such a strong stance about this because I have taught thousands of people how to change their standard, and their whole life has changed.
I love that. Can I go down like another, like a rabbit hole? Okay. Just because you said that, I watched this really interesting video that was like, what is the worst bank to put your money in? Do you know the worst bank to put your money in?
No.
Starbucks. Okay. So the reason why is because people fill their card or they have it on autofill, and it's basically a bank for Starbucks, but then people never spend it. So it just sits there on their card. So it was a creative idea by Starbucks, which was a genius creative idea to drive extra revenue, because there's all this money sitting on Starbucks cards that never gets spent. So they never had to deliver like value or product or coffee for it. And it's just sitting there as an extra stream of revenue. So we should do a whole episode on like creative ideas, because that was like completely outside the box. We're not selling coffee idea.
Yeah.
Starbucks.
Well, I'll tell you, I put a lot of money into that bank.
I know, me too.
I put a lot of money into that bank. So they sold one person, I'll tell you that.
They have sold like millions of people on the Starbucks bank.
Yeah. The biggest thing I can tell you right now is get so freaking honest with yourself and understand that you could accomplish anything. I believe so much in human potential. Like, I believe in it so much because I remember where I was, and I was just an ordinary person. Like, people come up to me now and they'll be like, "Oh my God, it's so great to meet you." And I'm like, it's just me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you, if I can do it, anyone can do it. But you got to play bigger. You got to operate out of your comfort zone. You've got to stop procrastinating. Stop saying, "I'm going to do this when this." So let me give you an idea, okay? Like, for somebody to come work with me, I have something I created called the $100,000 day. They come work with us for one day for $100,000. But do you know why I can sell that? Because I know their results are going to be 10 times what they're paying me. So I have no problem selling it. And why do I do that? Because we can get so much done in one day of proximity. But think about it. Would you ever charge $100,000 for a day? Standard. So I want everyone to start understanding. Now, you don't have to love what I do or be like, that's your business. Look, my business is about helping people. That's why we're doing the podcast. You can't create wealth without 10xing the value you give to somebody else. But I want you guys to start playing with bigger ideas. I want you to look at your goal and say, is that goal what I really want? Or is that goal 5% better than what I've done in the past? That's what I want you to do. Play with bigger ideas. What if you're in the wrong business right now? What if you're actually not in a business, you're in a job? You'll know the difference, because if you're in a business, you're always working with bigger ideas, bigger systems, bigger opportunities. But when you're in a job, it's grinding your way, and that's where the game will change.
So that's such a great point. We started this episode by saying average habits are keeping you stuck. What about average ideas?
Well, most people have average ideas. Why? Because they have an average standard or a low standard.
Yeah.
So you can't create bigger ideas if you're settling for less. So you have to really start stretching your goals and stretching your ideas about you, that you walk into that zone, which is the game changer, which is making the move before you're ready. See, everyone's waiting. When I am ready, I'll do it. When I'm ready, I'll do this. When I'm ready, I'll do this. Why? Because they don't believe. So if you look at success, belief creates success. What do you think identity is? Belief on the deepest level. What creates belief? You have to define it by a standard. So I think this is one of the most important episodes that we've done in a long time. I really believe that. Never give up, rise up.
Raj, I would say both of us can completely relate to having both average ideas, average habits, average standards. We've been there. And one of the fastest and best ways to increase all three of those things is through proximity to people who have greater ideas, greater standards, greater ideas. What would your suggestion be there?
Constantly put yourself in environments where people are further than you. Constantly. Not once in a while, consistently do it. Have mentors. Be in masterminds. If you're not doing that, I promise you, you're operating from your old self. When you're in an environment that is so much greater than yours, like I was at a mastermind recently. I was in Cancun, and whenever I go into an event like this, I'm like, my intention is I'm going to come away with 3 ideas and I'm going to implement them right away. I had a lot of ideas that came up, but I only picked my top 3 that I'm going to go implement. But I'm learning from people, from their processes, their systems that are different than mine, because you can always get better being in a room of people going where you want to go. Like if you want to create wealth, you can't be in a room and you can't be in an environment with people who don't want wealth. You want to be around people who normalize wealth. It's just like breathing. So, wealth is about working on impact. The more you serve, the more you get. I'll tell you this. I was telling my wife this. That whole room that I was in, every single person had one thing in common. It's the same thing in common that you and I have. It's always about service. That was the one commonality. If you looked at every individual, there was no takers in that room. Why? Because people who've created wealth, they understand that.
All right, I can't not do a shameless plug because it fits so perfectly right here. If you're looking for an environment with people who are focused on wealth and growing and going in the right direction, go to our website and look at our world-class wealth event, because it is incredible. One of the best environments you could possibly put yourself in. And
Mike, I'll tell you this. On top of that, just send us an email if you want help at hello@vosscoachingco.com. We're really excellent at helping people, so just send it. I mean, everyone's at different places.
Yeah.
But raise your hand and go bet on yourself.
All right, Arash, let's get into the action step for today.
I want you to define your standards that your goal demands. And I want you to pick a goal. If you don't have one right now, you got to pick one over the next 24, 48 hours. Like pick a goal that's going to cause you to grow. And then define your standards. And I want you to spend the next 30 minutes every day, not the next. So 30 minutes a day in the morning working on ideas. Just write ideas. And whatever idea that is in harmony with the goal, just keep jotting them down. If you get bad ideas, say, nope, that's the old me. Start creating a prosperity consciousness by building ideas.
Fantastic. Arash, thank you so much. Thanks to all of you. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a rating and review. And most importantly, share this with your friends and family. And we'll see you next week on another episode of the 7-Figure Standard Podcast.
Thank you for listening to this episode of 7-Figure Standard. We hope you found the insights and strategies helpful on your journey to success. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform to help us reach more people like you. To learn more about Arash and Mykie and how Voss Coach & Co. can help you achieve your goals and reach new levels of success, visit vosscoachandco.com. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of 7 Figure Standard.